Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today talking about some of our free agency moves after the first wave. Coming to you after a nap that went a little too long, but that's okay. We're still gonna rock it. All right, so we talked about some of the moves, a few of the moves earlier. But after this first wave of free agency, the negotiation window opened today. I want to kind of talk about that. And then deals can become final Wednesday. So while things don't typically change between now and then, some things can still change, just to throw that out there. But either way, as it stands, moves kept happening throughout the day, and I think that first day that's normal, but it feels like a lot, almost to that point where you definitely, because I had a half day, so I definitely didn't want to start talking about things. Well, I did as soon as I got home, and I'm glad I didn't, because then more stuff kept happening. So eventually I was like, man, I'm gonna just wait and see, kind of what's done by the end of the day, and then go from there. But this is definitely the big first wave. I have to look at the quote unquote top 101 list. The free agency groups have not been impressive for a long time. That's just not how business is done anymore. A lot of people don't get to free agency, but I would still probably say that a good chunk of the notable names have gone, even though we still got cuts and stuff coming. So anyway, let's get into it. So we talked about Joe Thuney and we talked about Jonah Jackson and how we still had some question marks over what we could do free agency wise, what we could do draft wise. So now we bring in Drew Dalman, I believe is how you say it, from the Falcons, who is a center and a career center, and so he will be a center. So I mean, like I said, Thuney, I think he's the only one you could mark in and pin at the left guard spot, and Dalman, you could mark him in at pin in the center spot, which means you could probably mark Jonah Jackson in at the right guard spot potentially, and we'll get to that. And so naturally that leaves you your returning tackles, Darnell Wright on the right side, Braxton Jones on the left side. But we still got the draft where there is a lot of potential to still, I wouldn't say upgrade, but at least add to the offensive line. So it's not completely over. I think that's where I want to go first. Like, as I said before, and I kind of broke it down, it hasn't changed a ton for me in terms of the complexity of the draft. Now, I was saying even before the Drew Dalman thing that I would be trending towards a defensive player at that top 10 pick, especially after the combine. Well, really, the conversations around players doesn't matter as much based off what I saw on film. The combine just kind of confirmed that. And so I just don't think there's a player that I would feel comfortable going after at 10 unless you completely love him. Now, on film, I completely love Donovan Jackson. And like I said, if I had to go offense, that's who I would probably go. But other than that, I would probably be looking at one of the defenders that are surely going to slip down. Now, with the quarterbacks moving the way they've moved, there's still going to be intrigue at the top, but this year's quarterback group is not the type like last year that's going to push a bunch of good players back. But there's so much uncertainty with a lot of different things either way between Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and even if you don't put Shedeur Sanders in that group, I think just those three alone, that's 3 picks out of the way that completely pushes. I mean, we would love Abdul Carter too, but that still pushes a lot of good players down our way. And I've kept up with the moves, but not in my mind enough to tell you like what pick and what this. And plus, we don't know. People still might do things, but I still feel like Mason Graham will get pushed down. And to me, some real legit defensive players are getting pushed way down in the talks again, because talks are just talks. But if you believe the talks, a player like a Shamar Turner is not even in the conversation. And I think he is firmly tied for the best defensive tackle in the group. Walter Nolan, who is in that conversation as well, his demeanor, very Jalen Carter-esque. He's getting pushed down. And so there's a lot of questions going on there. So I think there's going to be some dynamic players. A lot of people talking about running back. Now, let me stop there for a second. If you are one of those people that have been talking about upgrading that running back this offseason, I would love for you to go to comments and tell me kind of what you're thinking, because we paid Swift last year. I was against that from the very beginning, but it's not like he's a bad player. It's not like he was necessarily a waste of money. It was more the position for me. But either way, we got him. And then with an upgraded offensive line, with a new system, with Swift, with Roscoe, whatever. And yeah, maybe a running back, but people are talking like in the first round and stuff, second round. I don't know that we need that, but if anybody does have that feeling, let me know in the comments kind of what you're thinking. But either way, that opens up a question. Ben Johnson loved past tense, he loved multiple tight ends at Detroit. And we don't know what this scheme is going to be necessarily, but I don't think Cole Kmet is as good as people think. And it always goes like this. It's so weird, but I guess it's not weird because that's how the internet is. It's always 0 or 100. Like at first when people were talking about Cole Kmet, I'm like, bro, he's not as bad as y'all trying to make him seem. He literally is getting no opportunities. And now once he started to emerge and, get into a different system where he's getting opportunities, now people want to act like he's great. I think he's solid. Definitely we could add another. I mean, we had one last year. We could add another one with a system that utilizes it correctly. So at 10, if you're sitting there and Tyler Warren's there, Colston Loveland, that's tempting. Now, the only reason for me I wouldn't do it is because this is a deep tight end class. Like, more than like, I mean, I don't know what Harold Fannon's going to do after running like a 4.7 or whatever, but more than likely in the third round, you'll have him. You have a Mason Taylor. Really, I love Gunnar Helm. I love him out of Texas. So third, second round, you might be able to get those guys. That's the only reason I wouldn't get a Tyler Warren, but it would be tempting. So I do think my eyes would kind of be somewhere else. Everybody believes it has to be offensive line at 10. And again, the usually every year the answer is we want to trade back. But if I had to pick, more than likely would not be an offensive lineman, especially now with the moves that we made. So with 2 second round picks and all that, it's still kind of up in there what we'll do with the draft. We know we want to upgrade left tackle, but that's the exact position that is not available anywhere, seemingly except the Washington Commanders. I'm just joking, but I don't even want to get into that, man. Look, I forgot to say this off top, so now I'm inserting it, but it is funny every year around this time where any fan, because I don't want people to feel offended, Bears fans and all fans, it's funny watching people get so hyped up, or not even hyped up, people hyping other players up that they have no clue about, especially offensive linemen. Like, people read little PPF or whatever, or PFF stats and this, that, and they think they know something. It's like, bro, y'all have no clue what this player is, who he is. You just heard he was ranked on the list, or you saw a PFF grade or whatever. Like, and again, it's not to, like, people want to continue to take it the wrong way, but I don't even know how you take it the wrong way. I don't see what's backwards or wrong or hard to understand about what I'm saying. If that's the truth, it's the truth. Like, no one's saying, I've never told you that you can't be excited. I never told you can't hype a person up. You could go in your house and do whatever it is you want. If you want to sit in your house and tell yourself that this government is going to fix the economy, go ahead. But that doesn't change the facts. I'm not telling you you can't do something. All I'm just doing is pointing out the facts. I don't understand that issue. Like, people don't know. Like, and to be offended that someone says that is weird to me. But anyway, so you don't really have the left tackle in this draft, and obviously you don't really have a left tackle in free agency. So outside of a Commanders Tunsil-esque trade, well, I guess you had Ronnie Stanley, but he went back. But outside of that type of trade, is really, you're going to be taking a shot at something, because again, Will Campbell, who still might not be available by 10, but even if he is, you would be taking a shot at him at left tackle. You wouldn't be fully comfortable like, hey, he's a left tackle. And so there's that. But I guess I will transition to my next point. Regardless, because you got to take it to an account, but even with the pedigree of the players we've got, I feel slightly disappointed. Now, do not get me wrong. I think we've completely upgraded. I think we moved in the right direction. I think what Ryan Poles has done so far is really good. Like, I'm giving it a solid B+. And obviously we gotta wait to see how the rest of it goes. But I have to say that given the draft capital that you have, and given the type of draft class that you have, putting most of your resources into the interior O-line was kind of I don't know. It was, I can't say it's bad or risky or anything. Here's what I'll say. Philosophically, you got some players or some coaches, some GMs, that they're just going to prefer veteran players. They're not good at picking talent, or I won't even say they're not good, whatever. For whatever reason, they're more comfortable with veteran players. We see it all the time. And then there's some teams that are more, not want to say comfortable, but they're fine taking shot on younger players. And so it's just one of those philosophical differences. In my mind, Joe Thuney is proven all-pro caliber. Dalman, I'll talk about him in a little bit. I watched some tape, but proven center, okay, cool, upgrade. Jonah Jackson, proven in your system as a player, upgrade if healthy, but in a prove a year, whatever. So that's perfectly fine. But again, given what you have in this draft, where the opportunity firmly exists for you to get 3 offensive linemen in the first 3 picks, if not more than that, overall, or to, in the first 4 picks, whatever, however you want to split it. So this draft class is loaded with interior linemen, and that's not always the case. Like, yes, the market for interior linemen is going up, the demand is going up, but this is the time where you could. So if I'm thinking about walking away with a Jarret Davis potentially in the 3rd round, I'm thinking about a Donovan Jackson or a Tyler Booker or both, or a Donovan Jackson and a Grady Jarret, or a ton of combination. Even a Kelvin, if you trade back and get a Kelvin Banks or a Will Campbell, like, if you could have had some bona fide interior lineman prospects all at a rookie contract pace. And so again, what we've done so far is a B+. I don't think we overextended on resources. I don't think we, necessarily targeted anybody that we shouldn't have targeted. O-line specifically, I should say. So I don't have an issue with that, but I just do think out of all drafts, this was the draft of the interior lineman, where every top offensive line prospect is everybody's like, yeah, that's probably a guard. And then you got some pretty good centers and stuff mixed in as well. So that's the only critique where I'm like, I step back and look at it, because like I said, the draft, like as it stands right now, you could comfortably say left tackle's the last spot we have to approach. And that's the spot where this draft doesn't have anything. And it's so, it just, again, when you step back on the surface, to me it's kind of like, maybe you get a Thuney and you put some resources, some draft resources into a mix and match, whatever. Or maybe you get a center because you don't necessarily trust a young center, but then you get younger guards. It was things you could have did. And I think firmly there's still a chance that we get a swing piece. Like, for example, if you get a Will Campbell, it's very possible that he could be put out there left tackle. And then you go. Or it's very possible that Braxton is Jonah's struggling, and Braxton is at left tackle, and Will Campbell goes to right guard. Or we kick in Darnell Wright and Will Campbell goes to right tackle. Like, I still think we could get a piece, because again, I think Jonah's for sure on a prove it year, and Thuney is probably going to get signed for a longer term contract. We know Dalman's got I don't know how long his guarantees go, but at least got 2 years, I would assume. And so Jonah really, I think, is on a prove it year. So I still think with 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, I gotta believe we still gotta get an offensive lineman. So I do think there's space there that Jonah's not completely safe, especially with his health. But still, that's just kind of playing in the back of my mind. So there's that. But again, I'll say it again for any of the comments. What we've done so far is a B+. All right, so moving to the defensive line real quick, man. Again, gotta critique this a little bit. I like this move. Grady Jarret has been I would probably say the most underrated defensive tackle in a long time. For a long time, I should say. He's been my guy for a long time. When you talk about this, mythical Aaron Donald pass rushing or disruptor 3-tech, Grady Jarrett's been that. He ain't been better than Aaron Donald, never was. Not better than Stone Cold Jones either, but he's been that. He's been one of those guys in the top 5 conversation for a long time. And I've always been a big fan. D-line is my thing. Out of Clemson, he just made his move, and he was just, I wouldn't say wasted in Atlanta, because they had some competitive years early on, but the last 4 or so years wasted, man. Injuries and bad teams. And so that's one guy that there's a number of guys that I always want a good team to pick up. So like when a Saquon goes to a Philly, that feels good, at least to me. Outside of the whole, NFC East beef and all that, it feels good to see a good player go to a contender. That's why it was a little heartbreaking that Myles Garrett ended up signing with the Browns or extending, but still. And so Grady Jarrett's been one of those guys. So he gets released after, once again, they didn't do anything to help that defense. Well, they paid some players, but they didn't, perform. And so he gets released, and we get him, and the money is not crazy, but it's decent. I don't know his age, but I feel like Grady been in the league for a long time. And when I first saw it, I got excited. I'm like, yes, bro, like, finally. But then I stopped and was like, man, maybe that's a move I would have liked to have seen years ago. Okay, so he's 31, which on the D-line at his size, 6'1", under 300 pounds, that's up there. That's definitely up there. That doesn't mean he can't continue to play, but Grady's not what he used to be, and the injuries have kind of piled up too. So there's that. But overall, I don't know. I don't know what he still has. I feel like he's coming off an injury. I might be wrong about that. Let me see. This is annoying me. So it's a 3-year, $43 million. I'm trying to see what his guarantee was. Either way. So that's kind of roughly what we've been doing. Actually, I think some of the other teams in the league too, roughly this 3-year. And so you get this veteran up the field rusher. And I just feel, I wouldn't say it's a little too late, but this is definitely a move that I would have liked to see 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And for me, I know the money would have been different, but Jonathan Allen is out there. Like, I'm telling you, that's exactly how I literally kind of like jumped, like, oh, Grady Jarret to the bed, like perfect, a 3-tech, like hard to get. Then I was like, man, Grady Jarret, man, he kind of up there. And then I'm like, Jonathan Allen out there. We didn't trade for him. He got released and he's sitting there. So we gave a decent chunk to Grady Jarret. Like I said, it probably wasn't crazy and overall, but I would have liked to have seen those resources go to Jonathan Allen, who not only we know is, younger, all that good stuff, and really good at pass rushing, but he's a better run defender than Grady Jarret too. And so, I would have, and it's not to say that we still couldn't. I think they're going to lean on Dexter just because Ryan Post picked them. But that was kind of my thought process. Excitement, realization. Then I was like, man, I kind of wish we went with Jonathan Allen. Dayo, don't know a ton about him on film. I met him the one time. But other than that, I don't know a ton about film. I mean, I've watched the Colts in general. Obviously, when my line brother was on there last year, I watched the Colts. So, what's his name? Kwity Paye, Dayo, Buckner, Grover Stewart, Taven Bryant out of Florida. I think that was his name. I remember him. But a number of those guys, I watched the rotation and kind of the different packages. So I was familiar when my line brother played for the team. So I've seen him in that sense, but not like a hardcore studier. And look, at the end of the day, let me say this, because whether it's Tunsil or anybody else, and again, I don't understand why this is negative to people. People become available for a reason, and you just have to figure out what that reason is and what it matters to you. That's all it is. Like the Raiders getting Geno and how they feel about it versus Seattle wanting to get rid of Geno, or not get rid of, but willing to let him go. Like, it wasn't like the Raiders put a gun to the Seahawks' head or that they gave them an insane package. The Seattle was okay with letting him go. And so that doesn't mean he can't be good with the Raiders or anything. But all I'm saying is people are available for a reason, especially free agents. That's all I'm saying. Temper the expectations. People be trying to go crazy. Like, I'm not even talking about Dayo in particular, but I could see it. Shoot, when we got Muhammad from the Colts, that when Eberflus first year, the amount of arguments, people being mad because I wouldn't jump on the train to say how great he was. I'm like, he's not. And I'm not saying Dayo is Muhammad, but I'm just saying, bro, like, temper that. Just because we signed somebody and somebody's going to give you some random stat to tell you why they're great, like, no, they're in free agency for a reason. I don't know how Dennis Allen is going to run defense. I have no clue what Ben Johnson is going to do on offense outside of what I've seen in Detroit. But if we believe him, it's going to be completely different. So the system matters a lot. Like last year when we get a player, I could tell you exactly how that player is going to fit and what we were doing. Well, outside of Waldron, because I know what Waldron's system was. But mid-year, if we get a player, I could tell you how it's going to fit because I know what we're trying to do on the football field. So number one, that has to come into play. And then number two, you just got to look at that person's history and then look at what we got development-wise. As I said before, not every single coaching staff is equal. And we ain't talking about coordinators and head coaches. We talking about assistant coaches. You got some guys coaching receivers that never played receiver, that probably played running back. You got some former quarterbacks like Ben Johnson coaching tight ends. You got a D-line coach coaching O-line. It happens. Depends on your staff. Not every staff has a bona fide staff and a bona fide teacher at every spot. So it does matter what you got on your squad, the scheme you got, what you're going to ask that person to do. That stuff can amplify or downgrade what the performance that player is coming off of from their old team. But at the end of the day, they're available. Guess who's not in the free agency list? Myles Garrett. Like, we don't got to talk about Dayo in that term because he ain't him. Josh Sweat, you can say the same thing about Josh Sweat and all that. There's tiers to it, and at the end of the day, if you become available, it's for a reason. So even without seeing the film, I can't sit here and say, like, this is a savior edge rusher. Obviously, they gave him enough money. He's young. He's got measurables, and they think that that's something that they could work with. And we'll see how he kind of works in the rotation. Last thing I'll say, Dalman, man, I did take some time, and I knew this, but it really showed me today. Like, if they had the NCAA version of this, I tell you, I would have the best draft. I would have the best draft stuff by far outside of the NFL. But we don't got access to film like that in college. But in NFL, we do. So I was able to quickly not only pull up all the Falcons plays in different categories, but I was also able to quickly see if he was on the field. So I didn't even have to spend time looking. It tells you all the players on the field. He missed a chunk of games this year, so I was if it wasn't a play where he was on, I skipped it. So I was able to get through it pretty quick. Like I said, I looked at all the sacks. I looked at all the touchdowns. I looked at all the 10-plus rushing plays. And I looked at all the 20-plus passing plays that were completions that Drew Dalman was a part of. And I just came away, I said it in the community section, but I came away a little disappointed, not gonna lie. Again, let me preface that. I think he's probably a B signing, B minus. So upgrade for sure, but it's one of those things, like I said, when it comes to offensive line, first of all, not listening to the people at all, but listening to the NFL people, or at least the writers and stuff. Okay, we rank him as top, blah, blah. Okay, what are you using to rank him? What are you saying about him? And again, a lot of times it's these stats. I didn't show y'all, but when I was talking about like draft position and stuff, when I was talking about the D-line and O-line, I referenced this ESPN article that did like pass rush percentage rate and run block percentage rate and all that stuff, offensive tackles, interior linemen, blah blah. And so I went through that list. I think I mentioned it on there. Guess who's on the interior list, the top 10 for pass win percentage? That'd be Coleman Shelton. So again, these stats that people make up, I say make up because they're subjective. It's a little tough for me. I got to go to the film, and in the NFL, I got all 22. I can see it clear. I could evaluate so fast, and so I was able to see his whole season. And look, I said it in the thing. He's a zone guy, which I knew. The Falcons are a zone team. They've been with Arthur Smith. They continued that with this team. They love wide zone. Actually, even before, back with Matt Ryan and Todd Gurley, or not Todd Gurley. I forgot that running back they had that was hot for a second. But anyway, they've been a wide zone team for a while. So they like the wide zone. They like the inside zone. So he's a zone guy. You get a zone center. That's a guy that can reach a one tech, that can, get on the outside shoulder left to right of a defensive lineman and really move laterally quickly. They can climb to the second level, get on the linebacker fast, really quick in space for screens. That's what you got. And you got that with Shelton. The difference, like I said, Dalman has much better anchor power than Shelton had, but Dalton's arms are short, which is most centers. He's short. His arms are short, so he's got to get in there, and his hand placement isn't great all the time. He likes to hug, especially in pass pro, and that gets him in trouble. And even if his hands are right, he's going to give up some ground one-on-one. And so there's that. And then in pass pro, centers for the most part, it's clean, pretty simple, kind of help block. But in this day and age, we know the hot thing is simulated pressures, creative blitzes. So I really want to see the Vikings game, stuff like that, especially when I was looking at the sacks. And what I saw was what I saw with the Bears. Like a player who turns his shoulders immediately to the first person and is not quick enough in the feet or the hips. I mean, might be quick enough, but he doesn't move his feet or hips fast enough to recover. So if I turn to the player on my left and the guy next to him is looping around and I can't turn around fast enough, he's going to have a free shot on the quarterback. Or if somebody's looping off somebody else, it might not be your responsibility, but you can't help block. And so there was a couple big passes where it was almost a sack because he recovered late. There was some sacks that a number of sacks off the exact same thing, which was a combination of him, the left guard, and the left tackle. But 3 different teams in a row ran the same stunt because they got a sack on it each time. But you could see just really stopping his feet on contact. A lot of the same stuff I talked about with our Bears. And we cleaned that up a bit. So hopefully he could clean that up. But overall, like I said, I think he's solid. He's a solid center. I don't think he's anything world beater. And some people say there are no world beater centers, but they are. I mean, Kelsey was a cool name for a lot of reasons, but people don't realize, like, you gotta watch tape. He moved people off the ball, especially in double teams. Like, he had great technique, and I don't know that Dalman is that, but he's definitely an upgrade. So anyway, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section, let me know what you think. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.